Welcome to Talking Buffalo, featuring conversations with guests from around the world of sports, media, pop culture, and all things Buffalo. With your host, Patrick Moran.
All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo sports talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you very much, as always, for watching, for listening, for following, for subscribing. I do appreciate y'all very much. Before we get started with today's episode, want to let you know that this Saturday, if you live in the Western New York area, this Saturday, July 20th, all day long, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. at the Western New York Herald's Event Center, 1001 East Delavan Avenue. First ever Mafia Con, inspired and created by Del Reed. Talking food trucks, vendors, beer, tailgate experience, some media personalities, Bills player appearances and autograph opportunities, including Keon Coleman, Cole Bishop, Dwayne Carter, the three top Buffalo Bills rookie draft picks this year, as well as Terrell Bernard and Dorian Williams will all be there. Also, live podcast all day long, including this one. I'll be on live there from 3:15 to 4 p.m., and I'm going to be joined by special guest Tim Graham of The Athletic. All proceeds from this event benefit the Pun Foundation and Western New York Heroes, Inc. $20 is going to get you in the door. It is well worth it for a good cause. Visit BuffaloMafiaCon.com for tickets. So that's going to be Saturday. It's going to be a lot of fun. As for this episode, this is our weekly Podbag episode. This is the episode where you, the viewer, the watcher of the show, you control the narrative, your questions, your comments, your takes. I'm going to get to them, respond to them as well today. Actually, today's going to kind of be like a 50-50 show. We're going to do the Podbag in the first half of the episode. And then in the back end, I'm actually going to have a wing review today. I got a review of Main Hamlin, East Aurora, almost directly across the street from Barbell. This is a fantastic place. One of the few kind of like bigger, well-known places in Western New York where I had yet to have wings, but that changed recently. These wing reviews seem to be something that a lot of people, at least if you live in the Western New York area, that you guys have enjoyed. Certainly have a lot of comments, your own takes. Wings, just like all food, of course, is very subjective, but these have been fun to do. So anyway, later in the episode, that'll be later, I'll get to the wing review of Main Hamlin. But to kick things off, like I said, we'll do the first half here with the Podbag. A couple quick things, too, before we jump into the Podbag, which will be a little bit of an abbreviated one. And it's all pretty much Buffalo Bills today because I wanted to make sure that I got that stuff in before getting to the wing review later. But like I said, a couple quick notes. Bills training camp. Rookies are reporting now. Full training camp next week. Got to be honest, as somebody who has, been filling 5 days per week of content now for several months during the Buffalo Bills and Buffalo Sabres offseason, it could be a grind, man. It could be tough to come up with stuff. So I am very, very much looking forward to training camp starting, if for no other reason than just storylines that will develop directly from being at camp, watching camp. I will be at not all the training camp practices in Pittsburgh, but I will be at a good majority of them. So I'll have plenty of thoughts on those as we go along, but that is getting ready to cook now. And then one other piece of news too. Briana Aldridge from Channel 7 put out a tweet on Monday. Bittersweet that she's going to be leaving the Buffalo market to go to Dallas. Just quickly here, I wanted to comment. I've had Briana on the show. In fact, I had her just roughly a month or so ago live at Imperial Pizza. And I got to tell you, even then, I sensed, and we had a conversation off camera, of course, as well. We had some wings together. We were just talking about life and career, stuff like that. I got in a sense that she wasn't going to be long for the Buffalo market. Not that there's anything wrong with the Buffalo market. The Buffalo market can be great, but she just seemed destined for a bigger market, bigger things. Dallas is certainly that. Got to say, I'm a little surprised that it happened this soon. I thought she would probably be in Buffalo for maybe another 6 to 12 months, but I am incredibly sorry to see her go because I really enjoy her at Channel 7. But good for her. She's deserving of it. She's worthy. She is fantastic. I mean, she is an awesome on-air talent. And from my conversations with her, both on and off, like I said, the camera, she is really an awesome person as well. So big congratulations to Briana Aldridge, a big get for the Dallas Fort Worth market. Unfortunately, a loss for the Buffalo sports market, but for the person herself, I couldn't be more thrilled for Briana. Anyway, just wanted to get that out there. And now I want to dive into this week's pod bag. Like I said, maybe I got like 5 or 6 topics to hit on before we get to a wing review closer to the end of the show. First one is going to be kind of a continuation, actually, of yesterday's show. I had Anthony Morano on, and I asked him this question, and I wanted to save my response for today so that I can spend a couple more minutes getting into some detail. But anyway, this is not really a question from a fan. This was a segment from WGR last week that I thought was incredibly interesting. Chris Bulldog Parker was behind it. And he asked a question on Twitter. He put it out there. Who's your favorite Buffalo Bill of all time? And then he said, not necessarily the greatest, but your favorite. But here was the caveat to me that really stuck out. Also, is it acceptable if that player, or if you're, I'm sorry, let me start that over. Is it acceptable if you, the fan, are over the age of 40 for it to be Josh Allen? Meaning, if you're 40 years or older, should it be someone else besides Josh Allen? Is it even acceptable to be anyone else? Or I should say, if it's Josh Allen over anybody else. And I kind of found that really interesting. Again, Anthony was on the show yesterday. I thought maybe he might go there. He might take Josh Allen. Ultimately, he didn't. He took Kyle Williams. I'm not gonna replay pretty much everything Anthony said. Go back and check out yesterday's show. But I thought Anthony's comments about Kyle Williams and during the drought and coming out of the drought were really spot on. Kyle Williams, a classic, true blue collar guy, a complete overachiever. Good pick for sure. And I've been thinking on this now since I saw this last week. That's why I wanted to ask Anthony about this on the show yesterday. And I think I've had, until the last couple of years, I should say, I think 3 candidates for various different reasons. When I've been asked this question, probably over the last 5 to maybe 20 years, I've always landed on Daryl Talley. Daryl Talley is the epitome of Buffalo and the mentality of this town during a time where it was the golden era of football for the Buffalo Bills. And it wasn't Bills Mafia at the time because that didn't get invented till later on, but just Bills fans, man. He was symbolic of this town and of this team and in the heart and soul of this team. Daryl Talley was the heart and soul of the Buffalo Bills Super Bowl era. He was the ultimate gamer. He's also a guy who came here when the Bills sucked. He was a second round draft pick. I believe it was in 83 or 84. I don't remember off the top of my head, but the team sucked. Might have even been 85 now that I think about it. I think he might have came the same year as Bruce. Anyway, regardless, the Buffalo Bills sucked when Daryl Talley came to town. His work ethic, his ability, his quotes. He was a quote machine where, back in the time, there was no social media. It was harder to really get a good soundbite, a good quote, but Daryl Talley never lacked for them. He was a hell of a player. He was a leader. He was respected by everybody on the team. He wore the Spider-Man shit under his uniform when it got cold out. He was beloved by the fans, including this one. So for many, many, many years, Daryl Talley has been my favorite Buffalo Bill. Also, I should add, too, when it comes to Darryl Talley, one of the most underrated players in the history of this franchise. I mean, he gets a lot of love and adulation now, and he deserves it. But when he was playing, barely ever made Pro Bowls, was disrespected, like kind of like around the league. But this guy was just an unbelievably good linebacker for so many years with the Buffalo Bills. So he's always been my pick. I've always had Jim Kelly kind of right up there for a couple of reasons. Primarily, he was just like fun to watch. He was an exciting football player to watch. The Bills offense, the no huddle offense was so much fun. And he was the architect, or he was the leader, I should say, of that no huddle offense. He was a larger than life character, so to speak, you know, mostly good, but not all good, for good and bad reasons. But, when Jim Kelly was a superstar, was young, so just a teenager, he's starting to become a younger adult, and looked up to him, man, a larger than life guy. And then my third guy has always been Joe Cribbs, just because he's one of the first Buffalo Bills that I can remember liking, very early 80s. And I like the running back position. I've always liked the running back position, and he was fun to watch. I love Joe Cribbs. He was one of the first Buffalo Bills that I can really remember being like, oh my God, I love this guy. It's a lot of fun. So those have always been my three guys. But now, when asked this question, and it's kind of like to the point with the WGR tweet, is it acceptable if you're over the age of 40 to say Josh Allen? My answer is yes. As a matter of fact, admittedly, with maybe a little bit of recency bias, but I think Josh Allen might be my favorite Buffalo Bill of all time. And I've been around for quite a long time. Again, I'm old, and I can remember pretty well as early as the early 80s Buffalo Bills football. So, man, I've been watching this team play faithfully and borderline religiously for 40 to 45 years now. And I still think I'm landing on Josh Allen at this point for a couple of reasons. He's exciting. That's the biggest thing for me. Josh Allen, for better or worse, he's a human highlight film. When it comes to sports, my favorite athletes have always been like the parameter that I use to judge how much I love an athlete is, do I feel like I am missing out if I don't watch them play? Wayne Gretzky comes to mind. I felt like I was missing out if I didn't watch Wayne Gretzky play. Every time Edmonton was on TV, I felt like I was going to see something special when I watched the games. Ditto for Michael Jordan. I had to watch the Bulls. I wasn't a Bulls fan before, and I'm not a Bulls fan since. But when Michael Jordan in his prime with the Chicago Bulls, even before his prime, I had to watch them play because I felt like I was going to see something special, even if I didn't. Kind of like, even though it could be a boring sport to watch, but Tiger Woods, same deal. Tiger Woods is on TV in his heyday. I'm watching. And I'm not, gotta be careful here because I just named three of the most iconic figures to ever play sports, three of the greatest athletes in the entire history of sports. And you can't put Josh Allen on that level when he hasn't won anything. All right. So I want to be clear about that. I'm just talking about the exciting aspect of it, the human highlight film aspect of it. Josh Allen is must see. I feel like I got to watch him play because you never know what you're going to see, what kind of crazy shit you're going to see on the field, good and bad. Kind of like I felt when Brett Favre was playing, same type of player. And plus he is great. He's a top 2 to 3 quarterback in this league right now. And the reason why you can't make the argument that he's the best is because Patrick Mahomes straight up has 3 Super Bowls. Straight up. And that's what it is. And we've talked about this a lot on the show. I don't necessarily think Patrick Mahomes is all that much better than Josh Allen, but Patrick Mahomes has won 3 Super Bowls. Patrick Mahomes also has, arguably the best coach in the NFL, a great support system. He has arguably the greatest tight end to ever play the game. So there's a lot of factors that help Patrick Mahomes. But you can't take away the fact that you can't penalize him for being great and for winning 3 Super Bowls. But regardless of where you put Josh, whether it's first, second, third, even maybe even fourth, I suppose, he is great. So he's exciting. He's a human highlight film. He's a great player. And maybe what makes me like him the most is I don't think he comes off as an egomaniac. I don't think he's obnoxious. I don't think he turns his nose up at the media. I don't think he turns his nose up towards fans. And I get it. When you're on camera, you're different. But with Josh Allen, I feel like it's not an act. Like, I think some athletes that, when they're doing a press conference or when they're doing an interview or the camera's on them, I feel like they're not authentic, a little bit disingenuous when it comes to certain aspects. I truly feel that Josh Allen is completely authentic. He says what he means. And I think he recently said he would be willing to retire if it meant the Bills would win a Super Bowl. I truly believe that. I actually honestly believe that. And it just seems really cool too, man. Seems like you'd be a really cool dude to spend some time with, to hang out, to hit a golf course with. Talks a lot of shit too. I love that. So again, maybe a little bit of recency bias, admittedly, but yeah, I think right now Josh Allen is my favorite Buffalo Bill player of all time. And I think if you're a Bills fan, if you're part of Bills Mafia, don't take that for granted. I mean, he's going into year 7. He might have another 6, 7 years of this level of Josh Allen. He might only have a couple of years left at this level. The way he plays, that reckless manner in which he plays, which makes me like him even more, it could be over in the next couple of years. So just truly appreciate it. But yeah, man, great topic. I really love that topic. It's a tough one, and there's no right or wrong answer. But for me, it would be Josh Allen. At Sean Kula 11B says Christian Benford is a little overhyped. He's never really impacted a game in a positive way, minus a couple plays. All right. Thanks, Sean. I know you're a regular watching the videos on the YouTube side and leaving comments. A lot of comments on a lot of episodes. I always appreciate reading your comments, Sean. But I got to tell you, man, this one, do not agree whatsoever. I think Christian Benford is a really solid corner. I don't think he's overhyped at all. I would actually argue the opposite. I think he's underrated. He might be hyped up a little bit in Buffalo because we see him play every week and we know him. But around the league, I guarantee you there's a lot of fans around the league, relatively knowledgeable fans around the league, don't even know who the hell Christian Benford is. He's a good player. You go, and I know PFF is not the end all be all, and I say it all the time. You shouldn't use PFF when it benefits your narrative, but when it doesn't, fit your narrative, you bash PFF and say, well, that sucks. They're bullshit. The grades are bullshit. I get that. But I'm going to use the PFF grades here because 82.2 overall grade, 82.4 coverage grade, 83.3 tackle grade last year. For perspective, amongst the whole league, he was 9th overall among all corners who played at least 20% of his snaps. So his overall grade was 9th best of any corner in the NFL. 11th best in coverage, 8th best in tackling. Only gave up 453 yards receiving last year. Only gave up 2 touchdowns. Quarterback rating against him, 87.7. Is he an all-pro corner? No, he's not an all-pro corner, but he's a solid, good corner, a former 6th-round draft pick who is, at least for right now anyway, dirt cheap. He might not be dirt cheap much longer because if he has another season like he did last year, he's going to play himself into a really nice future payday, whether that's with the Buffalo Bills or somebody else. But I absolutely do not agree about calling him overhyped. Dr. Rick says, Damar Hamlin sucked when he filled in for Micah Hyde. He's never in the conversation as a key backup and never stands out on special teams. Time to move on. Don't really agree with most of that. I don't think he sucked as a backup to Micah Hyde. I actually thought he was really good early in 2022. And then you can kind of see as the season went on and got later, his play did fall off. Even before the injury, the near tragedy in Cincinnati, his play was falling off. And I feel like you could see that. But again, another former 6th-round pick kind of forced into action because of an injury to Micah Hyde, plus Jordan Poyer was so banged up 2 years ago. I thought it was pretty good, at least early on. I do think he is going to have a hard time making this football team. I mean, you got Edwards and Taylor Rapp. You're assuming those are your starters. You drafted Cole Bishop. He's clearly a lock to make this team. You re-signed Cam Lewis, a guy who could be a safety. He could play that slot corner. He's really good on special teams. Cam Lewis is making this team. So that's 4 safeties right there. If you're keeping 6 corners, 4 safeties, where does that leave Damar Hamlin? And even if you keep 5 safeties, I still don't even necessarily think it's a lock. D. Delaney, kind of a low-key signing. He could be in line. He could be in the mix to be that 5th safety if they keep 5 safeties. So I do agree. I don't think he sucked as a replacement for Hyde. I think he's done some pretty good things considering he's just a 6th-round pick. I do think he's going to have a hard time making this team out of training camp. I do think that's going to be one of the many intriguing Buffalo Bills training camp storylines to follow. I'll say this, though. Don't count him out. The fact, you go back to that Chiefs playoff game last year, the botched fake punt, whether it worked or not, clearly it didn't. I think the fact that Sean McDermott in that moment trusted Damar Hamlin in a really key point of the game might be a little bit telling on how he feels about Damar Hamlin and the confidence that he has in him. Now, maybe I'm overstating that some, very possible, but I think that might be a factor. I wouldn't bet on Damar Hamlin making the football team, but I don't know that I'd also at this point bet against it either. I think it's one of those things we're going to have to see play out. At Greg Priesty, McChoke gets 0 to no criticism from national media or local media at the level of Josh Allen. He's literally never talked about on ESPN when he clearly has cost his team championship after championship. Why? Thanks for that, Greg. Look, at least to some extent, I feel like that's a little bit of hyperbole. At least to some extent. Championship after championship, it's a bit much. Kansas City Chiefs are a great football team, man. Dynasty, an all-time great team at this point. And maybe they're just great at an inopportune time when the Buffalo Bills are really, really good. We've talked about it before, kind of like maybe like the 1990s New York Knicks, a great team that just could not get over the hump against the Chicago Bulls because the Bulls were an all-time dynasty and all-time great team. In terms of McDermott, I'll say this. I do believe that's the case maybe in 2021. It is clearly, and I've said this many times, I'll say it again, it is Sean McDermott's fault, straight up his fault and no one else, that the Bills in that last 13 seconds blew that game against the Chiefs. Say it again. Maybe the worst coached final half minute of a football game in the history of professional football. It was that bad, that inexcusable to lose between the kick, between using not 1 but 2 timeouts and then lining guys up 20, 25 yards off the line, not having somebody at least the first time literally tackle Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce at the line, take a penalty, let the clock go down. I don't have to keep going into it. God, it just pisses me off even thinking about it. Anyway, that was deplorable. That was inexcusable. Next year, 2022, and I don't know if that was a championship team. That team had been through a lot, and Cincinnati just kicked their ass. Now you can make a case that Sean McDermott didn't have that team ready to play. They were out of gas to some extent, to some level. At least that could be on the head coach. But I just don't think 2022 is the Bills' year. Last year, yes, but you know what? Last year I really don't. Fake punt aside, I don't buy that. They lost last year to the Chiefs, I believe, because the defense was decimated with injuries, and I hate using injuries as an excuse, but it does. They had a lot of injuries, man. Benford didn't play. Bernard didn't play. Of course, Milano wasn't back. Rasul Douglas played on one leg, basically. AJ Klein was trying to watch Travis Kelce because they didn't really have other alternatives. That and wide receivers just flat out dropped passes. So I put that on the players. I don't put that on the coach. I'll say this, though. I'll admit this. I think it's fair to wonder if the Bills would have at least one Super Bowl, though, if they had a head coach other than Sean McDermott. I don't think that's an unreasonable point to examine. Kind of feel like it's hard to gauge where to rank Sean McDermott amongst the head coaches around the NFL right now because he wins year after year. The Bills have been in the mix year after year after year. But so far, he doesn't look like the coach that's ultimately going to get this team over the hump. Two more here, then a quick break. The Shroom Zero says, the best thing about the Bills-Miami rivalry is that in 10 years, Miami will be underwater and Buffalo won't. Sure, we get snow, but it melts. All right, man, talk your shit. I love it. Good rivalries do. Players talk shit to each other. We heard it last year. John O. Smith talked a shit about Buffalo, or last week, I should say. Miami fans are always getting after Buffalo fans on social media. Bills fans, the same, including that. I love it, man. I'm here for that. Give me a rivalry where fans and players truly hate each other, where it feels genuine. I'm good with that. Last one here. At Gene H3127. Pat, again, great show and topics, but why the F, for the love of God, you have this loser, insufferable, and intolerable little guy on? Talking about Joe from Queens, my Monday guy. Look, dude, I love Joe from Queens, and in my own way, in his own way. He says what he means. He says what he thinks, and I give him credit because there's a lot of people out there that think but are afraid to say something. Is he negative? Hell yes. He's a curmudgeon. If this was wrestling, he's living the gimmick to some extent. Yeah, that's who he is. He's a New Yorker. Dude, he's been in New York for 20 years. What do you expect? That's how New Yorkers are. Born in Buffalo, raised in Buffalo, been a New Yorker for half his life. That's a New Yorker being a New Yorker. I like it. I think it's different. You know, you can't win sometimes when you have people on your show. Anthony Marino was on yesterday. In fact, he DM'd me early this morning, actually. Somebody on YouTube talked about he was about as exciting as watching paint dry. He's too optimistic, so he's boring. Joe's negative, so he's a curmudgeon. He's an asshole. He's a loser, intolerable, insufferable, all that stuff. Just, I don't agree, man. I agree to an extent. Joe can be a dick, but that's my guy. So, I don't know, man. We all have our opinions, but I kind of like having different people on the show representing, different ways of having sports talk. Joe is spicy. Anthony is level-headed. Anthony keeps me level-headed when I'm flying off the rail, when I'm the one, having a temper tantrum. Anthony has a calming presence to him that I love. Joe from Queens, maybe I'm getting a little too soft on a topic. Joe will call that out. So I like both those guys for various different reasons. Anyway, all right, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to take a quick break, and when we come back, I'm going to play my wing review from Main Hamlin and East Aurora, and then right after that, immediately going to sign off. So that'll be it that you hear from me talking about any sports stuff until tomorrow. But like I said, quick break, come back, and then we're going to have our wing review to recap this show. All right, before we get out of here, I wanted to drop a wing review for you today. This is something that we're doing from time to time on the show. I love wings. I love talking about wings. I love power ranking and tiering wings here in the Buffalo, Western New York area. And the vast majority of you, at least to some extent, enjoy wings in this region. So just thought it would be a little something fun to do here from time to time. Look, there's a handful of spots that I've yet to hit up in the Western New York wing community that have become like pretty well-known commodities. The bar at Main Hamlin, it's at 198 Main Street in East Aurora, is definitely one of them. That finally changed recently as I, along with my wife, my daughter, her boyfriend, so four of us visited them around 8:30, 9 p.m. on a Thursday evening. Between the four of us, we ended up getting 40 wings, consisting of 4 different flavors. traditional medium, Cajun medium, Cajun barbecue, and hot garlic. We also got a side of both fresh cut fries and waffle fries. I wanted the fresh cut. My daughter wanted waffles, so I compromised, got 'em both. And of course, a few beverages as well. Um, I certainly liked the vibe there, and the staff was quite literally outstanding. More on that in just a second. But at the end of the day, when we do these, when I write about them, when I post about them, when I talk about them on this show, when it comes to wings and restaurants, it's all about the wings. And here's my honest take on them and where I would slot them like on the Western New York wings food chain. Same format as always, some pros, couple cons, couple random observations, and then I'll give you my verdict on these. In terms of the pros, these wings, honest to God, perfectly cooked. No hyperbole there whatsoever. These were some of the best cooked wings that I've had anywhere. And I mean that. Crispy, but not like obnoxiously crispy. Plenty, and I do mean plenty of tenderness, juiciness on the inside. Like in terms of how the wings are cooked, legit 10 out of 10 in that category. Pretty solid flavors. The Cajun medium, the Cajun barbecue, they were, for me at least anyway, delicious. Their traditional buffalo hot sauce, whatever you want to call it, not regular old Frank's. So many restaurants and even wing spots, places that are even known for the wings in some cases, pretty much it's just Frank's, some variation of Frank's in butter. This did not, at least as far as I know, not Frank's, did not taste like that to me at all. This had a nice taste to it. If, and I got to emphasize this, if you are not a heat seeker when it comes to your sauce. More on that in just a second. So, well cooked, and I mean really well cooked, perfectly solid flavors, and outstanding service. And usually, look, good service is something that I would reserve typically for like the random observation section when we do these reviews. But in this case, I got to plant some flowers right here at the feet of the staff at Main Hamlin. This staff, and specifically our server, unfortunately, I don't even know his name. I want to say it was Joe, but I'm not positive. Anyway, outstanding, literally outstanding. Like if I owned a restaurant or if I was starting a restaurant, I would try to lure, as dirty of a practice as it might be, I'd walk into that restaurant, Main and Hamlin, and I would try to lure every employee that I interacted with and try to get them to come work at my spot. Seriously, they were great. And in terms of this place, by the way, and more on Barbill in a second, but a lot of these employees, I think maybe even the manager was somebody over from Barbill who came across the street here to Main and Hamlin. But for me, those were the biggest pros. Like I said, perfectly cooked wings, solid flavors, elite service. In terms of the cons, I kind of hinted at this just a minute ago. Heat seekers, beware. Like if you're a guy or a gal who, you fancy a strong kick to your traditional medium wing or especially your hot wing or any kick at all, really, you're out of luck if you go to Main Hamlin. At least from the wings that I had. The medium we got there, I felt like had almost zero heat. In fact, at one point, I asked the server for a side of hot sauce, and I took those wings, put them in that hot sauce, and I didn't just dip them in the side of hot sauce. I mean, I was dunking them in that hot sauce. Still not much heat at all. Like I enjoy some heat, but not a ton, and I pay for it. When I eat wings that are hot, my head starts to glisten real quick with some of that head sweat. My hat gets, I always wear a hat, so my hat's always getting damp, and that happens rather easily. None of that happened here. Again, really good flavor with the sauce, just not enough heat if that is what you're seeking. I mean, I ate 6, 7 wings, dunking them in sides of hot sauce, and didn't really feel any much kick at all. Also, for what it's worth, the hot garlic wings weren't really hot, nor were they particularly garlicky either. Of the 4 flavors that we got, I like those the least. Another con, not necessarily a real con, but it's at least worth mentioning. zero celery, and also just a bit skimpy with the accessories. Now, I don't know if this is a trend or not lately. Maybe it is at a bunch of places. Who knows with the economy and, how restaurants are operating nowadays. But and I haven't paid much attention, which is why I'm questioning it here, to be perfectly honest. But celery is not a thing at Main Hamlin. So if you like some pieces of celery to dip in some blue cheese or some hot sauce, you're not going to get that here. And we got 40 wings too, not even just a single. 40 wings, two orders of fries, and not a single stick of celery to be found. Just some baby carrots and one blue cheese for each plate. So one blue cheese for 10 wings is pretty standard. But I gotta say, if I'm being nitpicky here, the side of blue cheese that you get for each plate of 10 wings, kind of on the small side, not fact, kind of was on the small side. So no celery, smaller blue cheeses. And then the other thing too, it's not a big deal, but again, kind of being nitpicky, bothers me maybe a little bit. No like sliding scale pricing. 16 wings, essentially 16 bucks for 10 wings. Or if you got something with like barbecue, because we did get Cajun barbecue. So that was like 16.50 for a single order of 10. It's not bad. That's perfectly reasonable in today's economy. I got no qualms about paying 16 bucks for wings at a restaurant like this. Here's the thing though. No like sliding scale. Like no discount per 10 wings for each time you get more than 10. And that kind of sucks. I feel like if most places you go, if a single order is 16, maybe a double is going to be 27 or a triple is going to be 41, 42, something like that. At Main Hamlin, it's 16 bucks for 10 wings, whether you get 10, whether you get 50. So if you get 16 or 10 wings, you're paying 16. If you get 20, you're paying 32. If you're getting 30, you can do the math. We got 40 wings, cost 64 bucks. Well, 65 bucks because we got some barbecue Cajun. Like no sliding scale. Like if you're getting more wings, you should probably pay a little bit less than per 10 the higher you go. So again, not a big deal, but just something to be mindful of anyway. In terms of observations, cozy but small, and it's not a criticism per se, but like the bar restaurant, it isn't made for a large crowd. There's outdoor seating when the weather's good, which is nice. And that's where we sat when we went there on a Thursday night. But if you come here during like prime eating hours, you're probably going to have a wait time. Probably going to be a problem too. I mean, we came there on a Thursday evening, well into the evening, around 8:30 p.m. or so, and we were lucky to get seated. Like somebody was leaving and there's just a table happened to open up when we got there. Another observation, I mentioned fries, not part of a wing review, but the fries were solid. Both the fresh cut, the waffle fries, I enjoyed them. Reasonable size plate, $4.99, not a bad price for each. So fries were pretty good. Nice little side piece to have when you get some wings. And some people like to go out, have a couple pops, and by pops I mean alcoholic beverages. Very fair mixed drink prices. I got a pint-sized glass of well vodka, just $4. I got a glass of Tito's vodka, a drink for $7. So plenty of light from that. Conclusion time here, folks. All right, so the bar at Main Hamlin is one of the like ultimate enigmas for me. Because on one hand, the wings were, God, I can't emphasize this enough. They were cooked to perfection. And unless you seek heat with your wings, a lot of people do, but if you don't, there's not a single negative thing I could come up with about this place. Not that I want to come up with something negative, but even if I did, in terms of the wings, if you don't care about how hot a wing is, I honestly can't think of a single negative thing to say about this place that actually matters. The problem, the big problem for me, at least anyway, one I cannot get away from, and maybe it's just me, is that arguably, and I don't even know how arguable it actually is, Western New York's literal most popular wing spot sits literally 40 yards or so across the street. Like clear as day, you can see it from Main Hamlin. I'm talking about, of course, about Bar Bill. Like, so if it's wings you love and wings you want, why not go to the iconic spot that's just a small stone's throw away, short of a ridiculous wait that potentially awaits you, which is common at Barbell. Without knowing the facts, I could say that Barbell gets so much overflow business and people don't want to wait that you could probably fill up Main Hamlin just with the overflow of people who ain't trying to wait that long at Barbell. But again, if you love wings and you want what's perceived anyway, at least as the best or one of the best in Western New York, you got it literally across the street from Main Hamlin. I kind of liken it to a football team with like an incredibly talented backup quarterback. Like on nearly any other team, that dude's the starter. And he's possibly a star there too. But he ain't seen the field. He ain't seen the field on his team as long as starters around. Kind of like I get those like Barbell, Main Hamlin. I kind of almost get like those Joe Montana, Steve Young, San Francisco 49er vibes. Like if Main Hamlin, for me, this is just my personal opinion, of course, but like if Main Hamlin was almost anywhere else in Western New York, this would be a complete non-story. But with the location where it is, it feels like you're trying to get out from Big Brother's shadow. Kind of like I said, how Steve Young with Joe Montana. Now, Main Hamlin is not just a good alternative to Barbell, it's a great alternative to Barbell. But again, I just can't fathom driving out to East Aurora. Now, maybe if you live in this town and you have these places, all the restaurants all the time, not a big deal whatsoever. But if you're somebody who doesn't live in the East Aurora area and you got a 15-minute or more drive, and you're going to drive to East Aurora, hitting up Main Street and actively deciding against Barbell, especially, considering the problems with Barbell, which is a smaller spot, long waits, potentially may very well be the result if you go to Main Hamlin as well. I just simply, and I'm being honest here, at the end of the day, I just have a hard time, in my case, coming from West Seneca and going to East Aurora, looking at Barbell, craving chicken wings, and then ultimately not going to Barbell. That's my problem. To wrap up here, in terms of tiering, I'm going to put that, location stuff aside. I'll be putting Main Hamlin like very high on my third tier, and I have 7 tiers for my wings. The third tier is like the all pro tier, which if you don't understand like my personal tiering, I would rank them among like the top 15 to 20% of all like Western New York wing spots. So if you took 100 spots, Main Hamlin would fall somewhere between like 15 to 20 for me out of 100 spots, which is awesome, man. I like them. Seriously, I mean, I really like them. I just wish the wings were a wee bit hotter, and I wish that the location did not force me into feeling like, as much as I enjoy Main Hamlin, that I blew an opportunity not going to Barbell when I'm already out that way.